Well, here we are for another Thursday. And hopefully we scare up a few people. Come on in. Let's get up here. Let's see. We got Pirates of the Mall Trains, the Closet Branch, Dwight. Hey, Ken, how you doing? He's here. Pirates had to step out for a little bit, so he'll probably be back. Dan's Mall Railroading Journey just popped in. Brad's, how you doing, Brad, down under? Think y'all should be warming up out now because we're cooling down. Alrighty. Hopefully we can scare a few people into coming in on the panel here. See if Dwight got his computer working right. Yeah, see if we can't get a few. One or two anyway. Uh, well, we'll see what happens. Yeah, I made a big boo boo. Bill had a show last night that we had to cancel. David's Hobbies and Things popped in. Robert, how you doing? So we're going to reschedule that show. Probably be in January. Next week's Christmas. Week after is New Year's. So yeah, that's going to be the last show of the year. Robert's got a show he's dropping this Saturday. So Railroad Empire is how we build them. So I know we're working on a couple of new shows for next year. They should work out pretty good. All right, Robert, got one brave soul that's fixing to pop in sometime or another. Kyle, how you doing? He just came in. Maybe Dwight to get his computer set back up where he could pop in. He hasn't been on in a long time. Yes, I did. He said he'll be in a few minutes. So you gonna beat him in here? Well,
Are you happy now?
Looky there.
You allow old people in this room, huh?
Huh?
You allow older people in the room. Are you happy now?
You gotta turn your volume off.
Yeah.
I'm
You
getting
allow old
feedback.
people in this room, huh? How about now?
Yeah. Yeah, you hear me okay?
How about now?
Yeah. Yeah, you hear me okay? Or Mr. Robert.
I'm going to use my earphones.
What's up, gentlemen?
A whole lot.
You know I had to beat Andy in here.
Yeah. Robert.
What's up, gentlemen?
A whole lot.
You know I had to beat Andy in here.
Robert.
What's up, gentlemen? You know I had to beat Andy in here. What's up, gentlemen?
We'll have to wait till Dwight gets his headphones set up. So he turn the speaker off. Can you hear me now, Dwight?
Yep. Can you hear? You can't hear me though, can you?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can you? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
You're gonna have to flip that ear muff down, or
Yeah, I just want to quick and see if I made a connection before I got too connected here.
All right,
Just a
now
minute.
just twist it around. There you go. If you had it the other way, we'll have to think of some kind of obscure nickname. All right.
I hear myself talking to you.
You do.
Yeah.
All right, you gotta go into your sound settings and select the headphone. Just the headphone, not the microphone.
Okay. Just a minute.
Yeah. No, I got about 50 minutes, so. All right, Santa Claus bringing anybody any good toys for Christmas?
Well, I bought myself a couple things.
Okay.
Gentlemen,
Let's say Angie. Ron Bright's just joined us from down under too, so now we got two from Australia here.
what's up, Dwight? Hey, seen you in a long time, buddy.
He's working on getting his headphones set up.
Sure.
All right. Yep, trying.
Well, Andy's the Apple guy. He could probably help you there.
Yeah, I cheat a lot of
Andy Crawford
Yeah, I ain't seen you a
Holy-
long time, Dwight.
Well,
But
did you get
back
what?
and forth.
Did you get washed away?
About got blown away, but I mean, we
Yeah.
didn't get it as bad as some other people did. I mean, we didn't get wiped out the way, Mayfield got or even Bowling Green got. We lost about 50 houses here, so it's not nothing, but it missed the major areas, and we have a little wind damage and stuff, and we lost a few people, and it's devastating what did happen, but it wasn't the kind of disaster that Mayfield got. They got nuked, man. That looked like pictures of Hiroshima.
Wow.
And it done some damage. I mean, we didn't have power for 3 days. We didn't have power for 2 days. Didn't have internet until Wednesday. Yesterday, we got internet back finally, fiber internet back. So shows how vulnerable we all are to this stuff, man. I mean, the infrastructure is not, tornadoes are pretty severe, but we don't have any of the infrastructure that'll hold up to anything significant. At least not in rural America. Maybe on the coasts or something.
We had 2 in Minnesota.
But the utilities
You don't get a lot of
underground, they'll survive a lot better.
Yeah, they need to put infrastructure underground, especially power cabling. But I don't know. We get a lot of them anymore. I mean, we've seen quite a few. Heck, I've been on the nightlies talking to the guys before. Went outside with my phone on camera. Watch tornadoes go by. We're kind of on the tail end of where the used to be a tornado alley with Oklahoma, Kansas, whatever. It's shifted a little bit due to some temperature changes and stuff. And we kind of see we're at the tail end of it for sure, but we sure see a bit of it these days.
Oh, Adrian's here. It's just going to get worse. They've been taking down all those trees too out in the Midwest. They planted long years ago to stop the Dust Bowl. Well, that's going to be coming back. That's a bad idea to take those down.
We're not good with history. As a people, we're not great with history or remembering history.
What's history?
I know. We're doomed to repeat it. That's the problem. We just keep repeating the same things over and over again.
You need to watch Star Trek that time they got caught in that loop.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of
gave Data an encrypted message, and he finally figured it out and stopped the loop.
I remember that one. Yeah, there's a couple times in Star Trek where they did that. Best I can remember. I don't remember all of them. I haven't watched them in a long time, but
Yeah.
I do remember one like that. I like movies where they do that. I think that's really interesting, that Groundhog Day kind of concept. That's an interesting thought experiment.
So what you been working on, Andy?
Well, I've got the first straight module I've got finally brought home. I've got the 2/4 modules effectively structurally completed. One of them that you'll see on the show that's getting ready to release. You'll see the scenery substructure. I mean, none of them are pretty yet. None of them have meaningful scenery or meaningful track work on them, but they're structurally complete. So I've made some progress on the modules. I got a couple decisions to make about what the next module to build is, because that goes all the way down one wall and out. And the peninsula has always been a complicated kind of animal on my layout. It's just got more so. So I've got to figure out which direction I want to head from there. to get that kind of switching layout that is that branch line meaningfully operational. The whole point of kind of jumping and doing what I've done on my layout was to get, it was the shortest path to getting something interesting to operate in the short term. Like, it's not that interesting. Even the main line that's on, quote unquote level 3, I've called it, but the main level, the track work is in there. It's just not that much. There's not so much you can do with a line that just runs up and stops at a certain point where it continues up to the top level. So,
do you want to do a
this branch
preview?
line will let me know. Oh, you're teasing, aren't you? That's a tease.
I can. It's up to you. It's your content.
Oh, I don't care. It's up to Johnny whether he wants to present it, but
You can give him about 5-10 seconds. Teaser.
I'll do it in less than that. Watch this.
Hang on. I got to turn it on. I got to get my cursor back over. All right. Well, I've never seen Andy move that fast.
Well, you said 10 seconds or less.
I love that green stuff. Me and Robert were talking about that on the phone earlier. I really love that stuff. It's more expensive. It's hard to justify generally, but for certain places where you're going to have a lot of forestation and stuff, yes, it's more expensive, but it sure pays off in expedience and ease. It's just so easy to work with. It's so easy to you can play it thick forest really easy in ways that are actually kind of hard with pink foam. Actually, not just slower, but actually quite a bit harder.
Green floral foam.
Yeah, it's more expensive. And what I really want to try is Robert had showed a year ago or something, basically with 2-part foam, and I've got some of that 2-part foam too that I'm going to do some more extreme mountains with the 2-part foam. But that florist foam is only made by one company, at least that green stuff is, and like Oasis Floral or something like that. And they make a 2-part version of that, a liquid 2-part version of that. And I'd really like to try, and part of the thing with the spray, quote unquote, spray foam or the 2-part mixable foam is it's not good to leave it exposed. It's meant to be kind of sealed up, or you definitely got to paint it. And it doesn't paint well after you cut it. So you really, in my case, I'm going to put it down and kind of smooth it out so that the hard edge, the shiny, smooth edge stays a hard edge, and then paint that. But that's one reason I like the floral foam. You could put the 2-part liquid floral foam right over top of it. You'd seal it. And that would be, that'd be a good application, I think.
Does it expand like that crazy foam?
It's not as bad. And that's kind of the thing about the 2-part. Most of the spray foams you get expand like kind of out of control, like a lot more than you would want them to. Mm-hmm. Now, I've got some great stuff pro, and they have gaps and whatever that expands a lot more, and they have a much lower expansion version of that is. So I like polyurethane glue. That's regular Gorilla Amber glue, and it's polyurethane glue, and I use a different brand of that stuff too. But that stuff just expands a little bit. And it just expands a little bit. And then they've got the great stuff the normal stuff that expands kind of out of control. And they've got one that's kind of in the middle of those two. And that's kind of about where the 2-part is. It expands, but it's not out of control.
So the thing about the 2-part, the thing about the 2-part is that it's a thermolytic reaction, right? So the more heat you get to it, the bigger the expansion is going to be. So if you did that in, say, midsummer where you're 90, 100 degrees, and your layout space is close to that too, it's going to expand like crazy. Whereas if you've got it in, winter weather where it's 30s and 40s, it's not hardly going to expand at all. The volume that you mix also has an element to that heating effect too, because the chemical reaction causes its own heat source.
Yeah,
have you experimented with mixing them not 1-to-1?
No, because you need to mix it 1-to-1. It needs to mix
Okay,
one
I
to
was
one.
just curious. Well, with like epoxies, sometimes you can mix, you can change the mixing volumes. Like Envirotex, for example. I've done a lot of Envirotex, and often years ago I used to do that, and I played with some resins, and you can add more hardener to it, and it speeds up the reaction and makes it like you have a lot less chance of ending up with a sticky mess if you overdo the hardener a little bit, a little bit. I was curious if you could mix, if you could change the 50-50 volume split.
Yeah, see, and I was looking at on that same kind of note, I was looking at the 2-part silicone molds. So one of the tricks that I found was that if you put it in the refrigerator after you pour it, you put it in the refrigerator for an hour, it
Oh,
slows down the curing process and gives you time for those micro bubbles to get out of the mix.
okay. Like vacuumizing it. Like I've got a vacuum chamber and stuff. The point of a vacuum chamber is to use, which I guess you could vacuumize it too. Part of that's when you're casting, you can vacuumize your material. And as long as you don't stir it up too much or introduce a lot of air while you're pouring it, you don't end up with a lot of bubbles in your in your mold.
So that 2-part foam's the same way. If you can keep it cool or cooler, it's going to take longer for it to cure, which means it's also not going to expand as much. That's why if you look at in season 2, I did that scenery with that 2-part foam right there on the side of the peninsula, across from the main yard. Some of those are much bigger, and some of them are like damn near flat. That's because the temperature I was pouring in was drastically different.
It's interesting. I need to play. I want to play with that more too. I bought a gallon of each of those to play with. Adrian had a couple of points that were interesting. What the floral foam, and he said he'd used it for years and years, and don't get the dust particles in your eyes. You don't want to breathe it either. And generally speaking, I don't think you want to breathe the pink stuff either. It's styrene. It's a expanded polystyrene. I don't think you want to breathe it either. Most of the time, cutting it is not a problem. But I've done the first module I built. I didn't use any, ground goop or paper mache and latex paint product that I like to use so well. I sanded it and a jitterbug or a random orbital sander and sanded the whole thing and then put scenery materials right on top of that. I love that process, but it's incredibly slow. But you definitely, for sure, want to mask up if you're producing dust.
So I was going to share a picture here, Johnny.
No, I see that.
So on the right-hand side here, all of this is that expanding 2-part foam, but the right-hand side here was a cooler night that I did this mix on. So when I put it in, it went real smooth after it expanded. The right-hand side here was a cooler night that I did this mix on. So when I put it in, on the right hand side over here, or the left hand side, I got it backwards, whatever. The right hand side here, it's bulkier, kind of chunkier, and that was a warmer night that I did that piece, so it kind of went a little crazy. The other thing is this bulge you see right here. That's actually the leftover that was in the bottom of the cup that I just kind of shook out onto the piece I was doing. So in that one spot, it had more heat, which allowed it to expand even higher.
So you need to make it in smaller batches too, right? We talked about that a few times before. I wanted to run it in larger batches.
Yeah, I wouldn't. This stuff I would not run in a large batch. Like if you're gonna do large batch pours, like in the bottom of a canoe or something like that, fine, because you're filling a cavity. But in what we're trying to do, I wouldn't go that route. I would do small pours, and just do more small pours to get you exactly what you want.
But I'd like to buy one of those disposable sprayer kits where you buy the 2 pressurized AB canisters that are disposable.
Yeah, I wouldn't waste my time or my money on that.
And they're not that much money. They're only about $200, $250.
Oh, only. Says the guy who could spend $600 on a proto throttle.
Well, I'll grant you that. But $250 for the spray, but you could cover a tremendous amount of ground. And I've got $100 in my 2 gallons of AB. Maybe not $100, but it was some price. It was something like that.
Agent said you also have to watch the humidity when you're doing, especially the spray foam.
See, that makes a lot more sense to me too, because the polyurethane glue, for example, is water activated. So If you're very high humidity, that's fine. But I typically do it the way I would with CA a lot of times. I'll spray, with CA, I would put CA on one side, activator on the other, for example. I put Gorilla Glue or polyurethane glue on one side, spray the other side with water, bake the surfaces, and you've got it because it's water or whatever. Water is involved in the activating process somehow.
See, and with this stuff, you don't have to worry about the humidity in the air. I mean, I live in Washington State, so, and I model in my garage. There's really no moisture barrier at all. So that's everything I've figured out so far is you don't have to really worry about it too much. Even that Gorilla Glue, like it does phenomenal out here. It thing expands more than I really want it to most times.
Even without you spraying water, that is?
No, I spray a lot of water down too. I put a lot of water down. Okay. You'll see that in the next video, just how much water I use with that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I spray it till it's good. I mean, I definitely put a coat, I definitely make the other surface moist.
Let's see. I thought this was pretty neat. This was a complete accident. It looks like root structure.
Yeah, so I dig that too.
That piece of that mesh kind of folded over on itself. Well, when I unfolded it to stick it back up there, that's what had happened. It made that weird root structure. Complete accident.
Adrian, do you sculpt them wet, or are you casting something close and then carving after the fact?
So at this point, with what you've seen, all I really did was put the screen door mesh up on there and cut it out into the shape that I want it. And then I lay that flat, mix my 2-part, pour it right on. I use the thick tongue depressor sticks to get a nice even coat across the whole thing. And then I just let it sit and wait for it to kind of start to expand a bit. And then you'll get to a phase where it's still a little bit tacky and shape. You can still kind of shape it, but it's fairly dry as well. That's when you pull it off the table and put it where you want, and then mold it into the shape you want, because in a couple more minutes, it's going to go rock hard. It's really got to be timed out.
I really want a method that lets me basically put screen wire down, or in my case, I've got this fiberglass mesh that's used in plastering, for example. I really want to put, I've got my black garden fabric to put down underneath it so it has a nice finish. It doesn't grip through. Also, that lowers the UV, because UV breaks that stuff down over time, so it would lower any UV from getting to the underside of it. And then put that fiberglass mesh down. And I'd really like to be able to put all of that structure in place over styrofoam and wood silhouettes and get that pretty close to right, at least as close as I could to right, and then put 2-part on it. Basically what I would do and what I do with Gorilla Glue. And maybe I need to work with polyurethane glues as opposed to 2 parts.
Okay, now there's a caveat to this whole thing too. It's not cheap. Not cheap at all. $102 for 2 gallons. 1 gallon of the A, 1 gallon of the B. It's $50 a gallon.
So now pick up my $250 for the spray stuff. I spent about $100 just on this.
$50 a gallon?
Yep. It ain't cheap. Wow. But it'll go a long way. I mean, all that I did that I showed so far, I barely even scratched the surface on the gallon.
Sure.
Well, yeah.
It's going to go a long way, but you could probably get it in smaller volumes than a gallon of each. And that's how I would test it and play with it doing that. But even that's not cheap. That's, probably going to run you $30 for half gallon or something like that of each.
Yeah, you can buy it in smaller quantities. You can buy quarts or something. Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
But that's why I'm saying, like, the $250 for the spray is not that much more expensive, and I think it's 4 gallons of each. It could be 2 gallons of each. I think it's 4 gallons of each, or the 4-gallon equivalent, pressurized into 2 pressurized canisters, comes up to 2 hoses, and and a sprayer.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of material to cover. But in my case, like I said, I really want to sculpt like quite a bit about this area. Or I did when I was thinking about the sprayer. Now that I've built these modules the way I've built these modules recently, I'm not real sure that I want to work in any large area now. I don't know.
And I would not do that 2-part foam, even through a commercial style spray gun in anything that we do. I would not. You can't. The problem is the surface area that you're wanting to cover. You can't control the thermolytic reaction, so it could just be flat, or it could be bulky as bulky gets. You can't control it. At least doing smaller sections like we were talking about, you can control some of that.
Yeah, that makes sense. What I've watched a lot of the people who use it for home insulation sprayed it into walls, and it's thicker in spots and thinner in spots, and they come back and hit it a second time, or they come back and knock it off after it's done.
Well,
So
and that's the thing. More often than not, excuse me.
You're right. Yeah, I mean, the thing I've seen is that even people who do it on a daily basis cannot predict exactly how much it's going to expand in a given space. So
if you watch them do this 2-part insulation, which that 2-part insulation is different than these 2 gallons that I'm using, first of all. But when you watch them do that, they always end up having to come back through with a planer and plane it off, because they're shooting such a large square footage, a large area, that they can't control how much reaction they're getting. They're just getting whatever they're getting and trimming it off the rest.
Yeah, and they're heating it up, and I've looked into that a lot. I mean, of course, the professional installers are using very, very, very expensive.
They're heating it. When they do heat it, it's heated at the mix point. It's not heated at the tip of the gun.
No, it's heated and then flowed down the pipes to you.
Right.
I'm interested in that too. I wonder how much more you could control, say, just the 2-part gallon jugs. How much more you could control that if you took those 2 gallon jugs and took them to some temperature. If you took them to 40 degrees, took them to where they were relatively cold, or 40 degrees Fahrenheit, or if you took them to 96 degrees to where they become very, very fluid, very, control the viscosity and make your life a little easier. But I wonder if you had an exact temperature, if that would give you more predictable results.
Adrian said, just pour it.
Yeah.
You can pour it down the tubes and throw it away.
Yeah. That's where I've already got to. Adrian too is I did. Robert had talked about this before. I wanted to do it anyway because I wanted to use Joel Bragdon's system, or the Bragdon rock system. I don't like plaster. I've said that many times amongst our group. Plaster is good for like certain applications, like plaster structures, plaster bridge piers, plaster abutments and stuff, but maybe even plaster roads. I like that. I dig plaster for certain detailed applications. I do not like plaster rock work and big plaster. I've got a place. I need to build a cliff line that's 4 feet wide, probably by 1.5 feet tall, behind a large bridge. There's a spectacularly large limestone cliff there on the prototype, and I wanted to simulate that. And man, plaster, that's a big, heavy beast. So I want to use foam. What are they? Years ago, you may have had these too, Dwight. I had them many years ago. Those urethane rocks that like Woodland Scenics and other people sold, those pre-cast urethane rocks. They were really quite good. You couldn't get enough diversity in them, or variety rather, in them, but they were really quite good. I really want to catch that.
Yeah, speaking of roads, remember years ago I actually used real cement for my roads?
I remember us talking about that quite a bit.
Yeah, I did that.
That's not as crazy.
Still there. It never went away.
No question. It's as solid as concrete. But it's not as crazy as you would think. The very common scenery technique that I grew up with many years ago was zip texturing. And zip texturing was, if I remember correctly, equal parts of plaster, or maybe not equal parts, plaster, Portland cement, dry powder Portland cement, a pig.
He froze up for a second.
He froze up. Yep.
Yeah, you let his temperature get too low.
Right.
You let the temperature get too low. Froze him up.
The mouse turned over and died. That's all I can say.
Adrian
But-
said you're overthinking the two-part. Just needs to be at regular room temperature. It's very easy, and it cuts the sands easy.
Robert, you're just normal room temperature where you're working, aren't you?
I'm out in a garage that has no insulation at the garage door, so I'm at basically right around outside temperature. So, Adrian's right. If you're inside where you have, a comfortable 68 to 72 degrees, sure, you just mix and pour and go to town. But when you're out in a garage like I am, where temperature fluctuations are the thing, you got to work around it.
Do you have a heat out there, electric heat or something?
Yeah, I got a little like floor space heater that heats up like 10 square feet or something like that.
Yeah, that's what I got too. And it takes a while to heat. I actually got a separate room that's not insulated on one wall. And it takes a long time to heat that room up to where it's comfortable. I can, Yeah. But till it gets there, you really don't want to be working with a lot of glues and paints and, you got to wait.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the cool thing about this two-part foam, right? So if you can take the time to kind of just figure out, what the optimal temperature is, ambient temperature is, and then what you got to do to overcome deficits or gains on that, you'll be all right. It'll work for you either way.
What's the instructions say on the bottle?
I want to say it's somewhere in the 70 degree range.
Okay.
For optimal performance or whatever.
Would make sense. Yeah.
Adrian just says preheat the liquids.
Yeah, ain't nobody got the time to be sitting there preheating the liquids. Come on.
Would you put them in a boiling pot of water or what?
Right. Exactly. Oh, let's see. I'm going to go do this today. Oh, that means I better warm this up an hour before I go do that. Yeah, no, that doesn't work that way.
Might well look at using oil heaters. That's what I got down here in the basement. You can pick up a good one for around about $80.
Yeah, you're talking about that fin style that's got the casters on the bottom of it. Is that those the ones you're talking about? Yeah,
that's what I have too, Andy. Johnny, I have one also, but I've also got a electric one that's got a forced fan, so I quickly heat it up and then I turn the other one on.
Right.
Yeah.
But I do want to give credit where credit is due. This is not something that I thought of all by myself. I actually saw Eric Siegel did it on one of his older videos, and he uses this technique to do his tunnel liners.
Oh, okay.
So I thought, you know what, I'm going to give it a shot. I didn't realize how expensive it was when I decided I was going to give it a shot, but
yeah,
still went through with it.
People forget to mention that part in their videos.
Yeah, it's not cheap.
Robert, is this something you're going to do for the show?
I did some of it, and I did some in season 2, so people can go back through and look at that and find that in the season 2. It was probably should have done it like pre-recorded so I could edit out the wait times because some of the wait times were ridiculous.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean it worked out okay.
Yeah, but thanks for doing all that stuff. I think a lot of people get a lot out of it.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Honestly, Dwight, I just wish people would comment and give feedback, whether it's good or bad. I mean, if we suck, please tell us we suck, but also tell us, I think you might be able to do better like this too.
I'm also in the model cars a lot, and all the model cars guys, they all say, please comment, good or bad, please comment.
Yes, absolutely.
We want feedback.
Yeah, Adrian said you could use a heat gun. They do this in the fiberglass and boat industry. That's the industry he's in.
I've seen that done, and I do that with resins anyway, which two-part styrofoam. By the way, I just hopped on my phone. Computers are so frustrating. I mean, I know that as a daily thing, but
the IT guy has the biggest issues with IT.
We have more fun with you, Andy, because of all the guys that break down. I think maybe he's got too much going on there. I don't know.
Well, the problem is the time. You think you're going to build out all this infrastructure and stuff.
Yeah,
and it's the same problem with every mechanic has car problems. Every plumber's pipes leak. Every roofer's house leak. I mean, it's just These are
That
the
is a
things you
fact.
just don't have the time.
What's funny, Dwight, is he's got all this infrastructure behind him because that's what he does for a living, and he has the worst time with his internet connection. I just have the Xfinity modem router combo thing. It works great.
That could be where he lives, Andy. Maybe the infrastructure in the town you live isn't real good.
I mean, it is Kentucky. It's probably
Andy
pretty
is
terrible.
the infrastructure. Andy is the infrastructure.
Yeah.
That's the reason why he's got that big rack behind him.
Yeah. It's tied into my own wireless internet service provider that I sell internet service, but it's
business.
Kentucky, and they have to basically haul the bits to the internet on the back of a bucket out of this state. It's on the back of a horse. It's ridiculous, man. It's we can't get great internet service. I mean, I just had a meeting today with the in Lexington with the chief of police and chief of city police and the sheriff and city planner and commissioner and a bunch of those people about helping them deploy an LTE private LTE network for the city. And we're deploying the same thing. We're deploying that too. We're having to really spend a lot of money to try to get decent internet, but I struggle with that here.
I live pretty close to Minneapolis, so it's really good out here. But we just now had all our infrastructure buried underground under my house, which it always was on telephone poles, right?
Yeah.
And when we just had 65-mile-an-hour winds yesterday, and not a bit of problem whatsoever because it's all underground now.
Well, I had a German fellow who worked for me for years, a German immigrant, like a green card German fella. Great fella. I mean, he was at my office a week ago. We subcontract him still to do work. He's a great fella, but he used to complain every time we'd have a problem where he was like, in Germany, and he says it with I've got a bad enough accent. I'm not going to try to fake a German accent.
No,
but he would, in his thick German accent, he'd say, in Germany, we bury everything. It's funnier when I fake my horrible German accent, but he would pick on us for it, and he's right. I mean, he's absolutely right. But
he's right.
But I use speaking of the 2-part resins and stuff, I use the 2-part resin water, and I've seen so many people talk about a blowtorch for that, and a blowtorch works. I get it, and if you're doing like a big, when I do resin countertops in my kitchen, which I want to do concrete, but I cannot convince my wife to do concrete countertops, so it's going to be resin countertops. But when I do those resin, a blowtorch makes sense there because of surface area, and I've got a little blowtorch that's like a soldering iron. That's pretty good with the small resin work I've done on my layout so far, but I'm really nervous about a blowtorch around my styrofoam layout. That's, I'm a little more nervous about that. So I've used a heat gun to great effect with 2-part resin.
Yeah, that's what Adrian's saying, a heat gun, not a blowtorch. Yep.
Right. Everybody shows using a blowtorch with it all the time. And there are, and I've tried that some too, but I have just as good a success with a blow gun. I'm not shooting, poison darts at the neighbor out the window with the heat gun. And I've got the Stanley or something that's doggone hot.
Yeah, I got one.
Yeah, they're kind of intense and they're hard to kind of control. And I've got a little bitty version that's a craft one that doesn't have. It's not like a pistol grip handle. It's just a little straight thing. And the big one's great for certain things, like for shrink tube on wiring. The big gun is, man, it's the way to do it. Forget that cigarette lighter stuff trying to shrink tube. That heat gun is the bee's knees. But that little bitty one that for craft foam is just awesome for working with resins. But he doesn't, Adrian, you didn't think it makes sense to control the temperature of the original gallons of mix? Is that?
Yeah, I didn't quite get this. He says as it's going down the tube, you heat it, Adrian?
Well,
no, you heat the liquid up and then mix and pour.
And then I like the idea of heating or controlling the liquid in the gallons. Take the sink, fill it up with this hot water. I mean, I've got my hot water heater turned about as hot as it'll go. And I can fill my sink with water you don't want to put your hands in and stick the jugs in the thing. And I've got one of those little thermometers that you stick in a piece of chicken, that I can put in there and get pretty, accurate enough temperature control for this. I heard Robert say that he wouldn't want to do that because of the setup work. And for small jobs, sure. But if you're doing a big, reasonably big area at one time, it might make sense to go to the extra hour of trouble to make your results more predictable.
Okay, but let's work through flesh out your scenario, right? So you're talking about doing it on that peninsula area where you've got big mountain scenery that you're going to do, right?
Well, that had always been my plan, but now that I fell in love with this module design, I'm going to build them as modules. But some of those modules do have, like the module that's where the bridge goes over the aisle. That module is almost 4 feet of height, let alone how big the mountains are. It's a bit of area to cover.
So okay, so so
Yeah.
what you need to do, right, is you need to put ribs in to give
Yep.
you some sort of a support. But then because of the way you want to do this, you want to spray it all on. You need to put
Or
some sort
apply
of
it.
or the way you want to apply it on with a spray and a spray foam or a spray application. You need to
Well,
put some sort of hard backer behind your mesh so that it has something to hit and gives it time to start expanding. Because what'll happen is if you don't put a backer, it's just going to shoot right through that screen mesh and you're just going to fill those cavities out.
well, so I'm definitely going to use a hard back for two. Well, hard. I'm going to use, my plan is to use landscaping fabric, black landscape fabric, because
Oh,
it prevents or reduces the amount. So UV light breaks this foam down something fierce. If you've ever got into somewhere where the spray foam was hanging out of a window and UV was getting to it and it's 10 years old, it's brittle as it turns to dust in
yeah.
your hands. It's
Yes.
awful. Or if you've got old florist foam, is the same way. If you've got old florist foam out of a, out of a thing that had flowers in it, out of a vase or something, it's brittle. It turns the dust in your hands. UV is what destroys that stuff. So you've got to seal it and cover it with something. So with florist foam, paint is adequate, but you can't paint the inside of the spray foam stuff.
Andy, question. When you build your modules, are you going to make those mountain sceneries so that you can lift them up out of the way if you have to get in there?
But well, my plan has changed
You'll
and evolved.
you'll
So
see part of that answer in the episode
Oh,
on Saturday.
okay, okay.
yeah, well, and
I don't mean to jump the gun.
I've been building
part of
these
that
modules.
answer will be on Saturday.
Okay.
Well, and I don't want to turn the lights on edgy in the
I
living
don't.
room.
I don't
But
want to spoil it for everybody when you're going to be showing it.
well, some of the people have seen these modules before too already. But I've been building these modules
Yeah.
that
Right.
are. I need to turn more lights on. So I've been building these modules that are
It's gonna
this
get a
design.
Denozo.
So
How
there's
do you
this
turn?
C frame of a module design.
Just
And
light
that,
a match, Andy. Maybe something will blow up.
yeah, I got to get you some lights. Carry on. Talk amongst yourselves.
Can
So
you take your module with you then, Andy, to a show?
I mean, it would be possible. I mean, this definitely. So my argument for years has been that I wanted my layout to be movable, not portable. But these modules are much closer to truly portable. I don't actually care about that, and we're not making the track section joints between them easy to detach. And my intent is always to scenic over the gaps between modules, but make it to where I can just go back and slice that gap open if and when I need to in the future.
Okay.
So I can move. I'm going to move the layout. I mean, I would have built a new house in 2020 had something happened in 2020. I don't remember what it was, but something that made me nervous about the economy. So I've decided I'm going to put that off for a year, for a few years probably, and I'm likely to build a building out back first and just build a 3-car garage, add to the value of the house, etc. I think I'm going to delay the house, but still be able to do that. So I want to be able to move the layout. So I'm going to build them as these C-frame modules that I can't easily show without turning the big fluorescent lights on that my wife will kill me over.
Adrian makes a good point, though. Latex is better when you paint over something. It's not so, quote, hot, where other paints are very hot and they can melt through things.
Yeah.
Well, I've learned that in model building.
And my plan had been to use this landscaping fabric, black landscaping fabric, as the underpinning, not just to back it, but also to prevent UV light or to reduce the amount of UV light that gets to the inside of it that makes it brittle. And because I sure do not want to have to paint the inside of my mountain.
Wait a minute. Where are you getting UV light to the inside of your module?
Well, UV light bounces up from from lights that are all these lights produce UV. So you need to seal that styrofoam with paint or something.
Okay, but the amount of UV coming off those fluorescents is negligible at best. It's not even close to be sitting outside in the sun.
Yeah.
Well, and UV actually fluorescents are pretty rough on UV. Yes, they're not compared to the sun, but they're pretty rough. But these are all LEDs. Everything I have is LED strip light.
Yeah.
But
Me
this
too.
stuff, this fiberglass mesh, it's relatively, it's got quite a bit of I don't know, it's got a bit of strength to it. So I think with styrofoam silhouettes and wood silhouettes where I need them, I think I can make it fairly structural. And I think I'm going to take, I'm sure at this point I'm going to take everybody's advice, and I'm not going to even think more about spraying it, which I had basically already come to that conclusion anyway, because I've already bought 2 gallons of regular bottle stuff like Robert's got. It's here somewhere. So I mean, I'm gonna pour it like everybody else does, but I really want to figure out a way to apply it on surface as opposed to doing it like in a tray and applying like 6-inch patchwork. I really don't want to try to do patchwork. I'd really like to pour it from the top and use a disposable brush or something to kind of spread it over the hill.
I think you're barking up the wrong tree.
Honestly, you're sure hard on Adrian. That's all I know.
No, I think he's got the right idea. I think he's got the right points. I mean, I like the idea of spraying it real well, but Adrian was saying he's done this quite a bit, and there's no reason to reinvent the wheel. Not to mention Robert and me and Robert have been arguing about this for a year probably. So keep in mind that despite me debating this in good faith, largely because I enjoy the debates of multiple people.
He likes to use this to get under my skin, Dwight.
Well, okay, so
yeah, well, he's already killing Adrian. Adrian's dying over there, so
that's just a side benefit. Getting under your skin is just a perk. But I tend to find when 2 people agree with each other, it's not that interesting. Number one, and you get one answer at best out of 2 people. What I love about our nightly chats often is if there's 7 or 8 people, and if there's 8 people in there, and you ask for an opinion, you'll get at least 9 opinions. So that diversity of different viewpoints. So even though I've bought the gallons, I intend to do that for sure, no question. I keep challenging on ways to apply this, thinking that as we discuss, we get closer to a kind of idealized mechanism to install it without it being the patchwork. I just don't want the process we all knew and hated of, I used to cut the little 6-inch squares of old sheets is what I love compared to, a lot of people use paper towels or things like that, dipped in plaster and hung on mountain surfaces. I like sheets, buy cheap bed sheets. They make great plastered mountain surfaces.
So here's the thing.
I don't want that patchwork crap.
You don't need to, you're thinking about it in a 6-inch square, right? Patchwork. That's how you're thinking about this. So you don't need to do that, but I would seriously not recommend you do like 40 square feet in a shot. I would definitely not recommend that. But if you did say, a 4-inch wide by 4 feet, you can get away with it as long as you can lay it flat on a table. You can get away with that. Well, see, that's the trick. But that's the trick. You put the screen up there. You get it the measurements you want it. You put it down on a table, you pour it out, you run it out, make sure it's covered the whole thing, let it sit for 10 to 15 minutes while it kind of starts to expand a little bit. And then as soon as it's just past the point of tacky, so it's starting to actually crust over and it's not tacky anymore to the touch, you pull it off the table, you put it up where you want it, you pin it down and let it sit.
That works. It's just that's hard to do on basically big hollow mountains, or you end up with multiple layers of screened mesh to support the thing. Honestly, what I want is some of the first scenery techniques I ever used in, I don't want to exactly say exactly what year, but gray hairs ago. The first scenery techniques I was ever taught was with a stapler and with metal door screen, and we painted thin plaster on top of it, and then come back with a thicker plaster. I don't love plaster. There's a lot of things I don't love about that process. As a material, I don't love it. The biggest reason is because anytime you want to change anything, you cover the house in white dust, and it doesn't go away for a year.
Yeah.
I hate augmenting or making changes to it. It makes me reluctant to make changes because I hate digging into plasters so much. But what
But
I
this
actually
stuff's
want,
great.
yeah, absolutely. That's why I'm so convinced of styrofoam as a building technology for sure. Absolutely. But what I really want is an installation methodology that's pretty close to that, where you could pre-build all of your mountains. And I could take that fiberglass mesh, put it everywhere, get it basically right. Heck, I could spray paint the thing so I could look at it brown and get the mountains right and look at them for a month. And then when I'm ready to do something with it, it would harden up. That's what I
You
want.
can do the same thing. You just, instead of using the fiberglass mesh or the vinyl mesh, you get a metal mesh and you do the same thing. You just get it, shape it the way you want it, and then when you go to pour it, you just account for that in your base layer. So if you're going to actually put ridges and things in it, you just have to account for that and
I've
account
thought
for
about
that
that a lot.
volume.
So there is a thing you can buy that I've run into. You look at these little things to get ideas, and there's something at Lowe's or something I was looking at recently where they had like I've even got some pictures on my phone of it, but it's like a foot wide piece of material, and it has that fiberglass mesh, and it has a piece of a very, very flat metal screen wire intended for you to patch a hole, like where somebody's punched a doorknob through a wall or something. And you could cut a square of that out, put the fiberglass mesh, a little bit of plaster. You've patched a hole in a wall and it has that metal structure to it. I'm not absolutely opposed to using a high spacing, what we would call a rat wire or a chicken wire or something like that. I'm not opposed to that. I'm not
Robert,
super fond of it.
Johnny,
but
can
I'm
you
not
pull up that
completely
screen
opposed.
share real quick?
Robert, was there any environmental factor involved in here, like a really smelly situation, or?
No, I did. So first of all, I like weird smells. Like I like the smell of fresh asphalt. I love the smell of diesel. Like, so for me, weird smells like that, no, that it doesn't bother me at all. Some
I'd be
people
divorced
maybe,
if I did.
some people maybe, but no, I don't think so. I didn't think it stunk too bad. Anything like that. Like
resin water does. Like doing 2-part resin water has some smell to it that my wife has complained about.
So you see, Andy, you see right over here where we've got all these different like boulder. It looks like boulders and things like that.
Yeah, which I don't dislike that. That works for me. Honestly.
That was all poured flat on the table.
Oh,
Yeah.
That piece laid flat on the table, and that's how it rose on its own.
Have you tried pouring it in place on any of these mountains? Because I've watched you do a
No,
bunch
this
of
mesh
it.
is too thick, is too wide.
I know.
It's
But
gonna it's liquid, bro. It's gonna just go right through.
So what
Another
if you
question.
let it set up a bunch? Sorry, Dwight, go ahead.
No, you started before I did.
What if you let it set up quite a bit? So what if you made like a pint of the stuff, like quite a bit, a small amount of volume, and let it set up significantly? Like I've done with plaster before. I've worked with plasters like that, and let them set up a lot, and then pour them in place.
So the thing, so I don't know the honest answer to that, and I will tell you that right up front. I've never tested that. I don't actually know. My instinct, based off the anecdotal evidence that I do have, says that it won't work the way you want it to. This, like we were talking earlier about this root structure looking thing here.
Yeah,
that had already gotten to a point where it was just tacky, just barely tacky. And when I went to pull it off of the paper, off the wax paper,
it left the foam.
It folded over on itself. So when I unfolded it, that's what happened.
Oh, so maybe you need to work it after the fact. Yeah, Dwight.
Can you add a coloring to it so it doesn't come out all white?
Yes, you can add pigments to this, but you've got to get a specific type of pigment. And I don't remember what that is. I did look into that because I was thinking the same thing. I could throw a pigment on it, and there's my dirt work right there. You can throw pigments, but you got to get it right with the right ones.
But I do think there is a benefit to. I think there's a benefit to painting it because you need to seal it from like UV and stuff. I mean, and yes, you're not getting the same UV you would outside. But if you keep a layout, my intent is for the modules that I'm building to be a part of any layout I'm building in 20 or 30 years. I never want another disposable layout ever.
Right. So here, the reason I zoomed it is because I want you to see, first of all, the size of the cells in the foam itself. It's a very tight, close. It's a very tight, close. Well, It's not.
Oh,
It's very tight, very close. It's closed cell, but it's very tight closed cell.
yeah, that's
Uh,
different than the spray stuff too. That's different than
and
the canned stuff.
it's not hard. I should say it's not difficult to cut it and shape it to exactly what you want. Now, I just took a knife and just whacked this one just to see how difficult it was going to be. There's a little bit of a fight when you first try to break through that shell, but it's the
Sure.
second you break through that shell, it just right off of there.
Cuts like the pink stuff does otherwise then.
Pretty close, yeah.
Okay.
All
Pretty
right,
close.
Andy, I got a deal for you.
Okay.
Where'd
This
it
is
go?
scary.
What kind of deal?
Hang on.
I'd be
Oh
scared.
yeah,
If
I can't
was
see
you.
the chat anymore. I could when I was on my computer, but it acted up a couple times, so I just said I'm not
Oh,
fooling with you
here it
right
is. This is a deal from Adrian, okay? Well, hell, Andy, if you want fiberglass hollow mountains, I will make them for you.
Actually, I'd really love to discuss this more with you, Adrian. You've got quite a bit of expertise. What will you email me sometime? Just Andy@modelroundinglive.com. Andy@modelroundinglive.com. Email me. I'd love to get you into the nightlies and talk about the regular nightly video chats anyway. But I'd love to. I mean, the key to any of us becoming better model railroaders, is to find better builders, better modelers, better, I don't know, probably better humans, honestly. But is to find experts in areas, and kind of, because as all of us would tell you, as any modeler would tell you, model railroading, of course, as we all know, actually, intuitively we know this. It's a collection of 1,000 hobbies, or a collection of 1,000 skills. So, and my problem is, I go down rabbit holes like crazy. I'm writing custom code. I'm writing custom computer code for a DCC control system that I've called Layout OS. I've been working on it for a couple of years, and I've made some progress, but still, it's just a project. I got a 3D printer. I really want a laser cutter. I have a CNC machine. I go down rabbit holes, but I really want to try to do whatever I'm doing at a high level. And if I could gain some expertise of people who've worked with this. That's why me and Robert have powwowed about this thing extensively, because he's actually tested it, and I mean to test it. And I have worked with a bunch of different foams, including the florist stuff. I really fallen in love with that. And you can get that in a 2-part, but the florist stuff is pretty much never structural. It is pretty much always just a pin cushion. And if you really want forests that look real, you need trees a lot closer, with all their arms, meshing together, and a lot more trucks than what you could ever get if you just even if you just take super trees and butt them up against each other. You're going to have a truck every 2 or 3 inches. You need 40 trucks every 2 or 3 inches. So I put a lot of sticks in it. So I need, the florist foam works really good for me because of the number of sticks that I stick into it. But it's a pin cushion. So
He said he does touch and point you in the right direction.
I'll take information anywhere I can get that for sure. And the best way to
Adrian, a little word of caution when you do, get you a set of horse blinders and put them on Andy. Or otherwise he's going down that rabbit hole.
And Johnny, and most of the guys who've known me for years on here know things that I've had to realize about myself and make peace with many years before. They have had to, I don't just go down one rabbit hole. I have a tendency to put a foot in each and an arm and a couple more, and I don't have a
His
tremendous
wife
amount of
calls
free
him an
time anyway.
octopus, but not in the way that the girlfriends used to use that term.
But I'm pretty happy with the results I get. Although, if I did not suffer from some of the proclivities I have, I would have had trains running a while ago. I've been working on this last 6 years and don't have trains running meaningfully. So keep that in mind. I don't wish my proclivities on anybody, but and as I've said about other people, I enjoy all kinds of other people's layouts. I enjoy everybody's modeling. I love Dwight's layout. I love what Robert's built. I love all of our layouts and all of our group, but I really hold I'm not one of those rivet counters. I am an unabashed rivet counter, but I'm not one of those rivet counter that judges other people. Not at all. If you're happy, you're happy. And I enjoy other people's layouts without rivet counting them. But I am incredibly critical of my own modeling and my own stuff.
Yes, it's on two monitors. That's right, because I'm watching the live chat over here.
Well, I tell you what, we done overshot the 1 hour mark, so
Kept it busy. That's good. That's good.
So Adrian had a deal for Andy. So what I want to see on the other end of that is I want to see Adrian on here during one of our shows when we're talking about this 2-part foam.
Yep.
And I want him to teach us how to properly use it since he's a professional.
Doggone right. Yeah, I'd love it if you email me, Adrian, and we'll try to get you on a nightly and chat about this.
Share that information with the rest of the world so that we can all do it properly instead of just, for lack of a better thought, half-assing it.
Yeah.
Yep. We all want to do it better. And we're experimenting to get the right answers, and that works sometimes, but we'd sure love to have the expertise. So.
all righty. Well, this is the last show for Mall Railroading Live for this year.
Oh, yeah, I suppose, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, because next week's Christmas, the week after is New Year's. So.
Boy,
Oh,
where'd that go to?
Who gave you Christmas off, Johnny?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I'm ready for a new year anyway.
Did they do Christmas in Georgia?
Yeah. We do now.
That's good, Johnny. You deserve a break anyway.
But,
Deserves a break. He was off for 3 months, not 2 months ago.
Oh, I forgot about that.
That go.
Yeah, what you forgot to mention was that's the only break I've had in 7 years.
Yeah, that's right.
Or
That's
did
right.
I forget?
Yeah, that's right. I didn't forget.
He didn't forget. He just didn't mention it. Those are two very different things.
Oh,
Two
okay.
very different things.
Come on, Johnny. This isn't what you've done over your career. This is what have you done for us lately. Come on. You know how this works.
Oh, my God. You better check with Big Bill on that one.
He'll tell you the same thing I just did.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
y'all have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Same to you, Johnny.
And we will see y'all in January. I don't have the schedule made up yet. So,
Okay.
like
We'll
I
be
said, we
watching.
got a couple other shows we got in the works right now. So, I think one of them will be starting here sometime in January. So,
Does Big Bill have anything coming up this month yet?
he's already had 2 or 3.
I thought
He
he
had one
more.
yesterday, but we had to cancel it because of personal issues.
Oh, okay.
So he's not going to have another show till in January.
Oh, okay. Thank you for mentioning that. I didn't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I forgot to post cancellation yesterday.
So with everything going on with Andy and that tornado situation, I'm shooting for a Saturday drop. It might actually end up dropping on Sunday. So
Okay.
wanted to give you all the heads up there. I'm going to push
Thank
for
you.
Saturday, but I won't make promises.
Okay. Well, thanks. Thanks for doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. All righty. Well, y'all have a good week.
Yep.
Merry
you too.
Christmas. Happy
Merry-
New Year.
Same to you, Johnny.
And we'll catch y'all a little later. If I can find the right buttons again.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Andy, I don't use Safari and Chrome at the same time, right?
Yeah, I do that. I'm guilty of using those. It's just, it's just
All right.
being in here gives you trouble.
Officially
Johnny.
cut y'all off.
Good night.